It is great to be here with you today. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to position my camera just a little differently. There we go. All right. We are set. Again, thank you for joining me. And if you're just checking in, would you do that officially? Let me know where you're watching from. And folks, I don't mean on which social media, I mean on what country, what city, whatever. We have people that'll join us from all over the world. I love that part. So if you're just joining us, please sign in. And also, folks, let your friends know that, hey, Pastor Bob's on. Time to watch the show. Yeah. So we've got some great guests today, and I'm excited for you to meet Jonathan Johnson. If you don't know him, he's our guest a little later. I have a great co-host coming up in a few minutes, and we've got some good things going on. Jonathan Johnson, you know him from Deny the Fallen and um, Sacred Warrior. He's writing a book. We want to talk about that also, and lots of good things to cover today. So. Um, Yeah, get ready for a great, great show. So we had a bad storm last night. In fact, where's my co-host? Miss Sherry Mancaruso is here with me today. I'm very, very happy to have her on board. There she is.
Yay!
So Sherry, we had a little storm last night.
We did.
Again,
Yeah,
again. Yeah,
again. Guess
yeah,
what it's doing? Again.
it's like welcome to Tennessee.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Showing out for us.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So if you don't know Sherry, what?
What?
I know.
That's me.
So Sherry is one of the original members of Sanctuary for 40 years and um, good friends for 40 years.
Yeah.
She's been very involved with secretary as a secretary of Sanctuary way back in the day. In the day, stories we could tell.
The
Stories
stories
we
we
could
could
tell.
tell.
Yes, we could.
Yeah.
Um, Of course, she's married to Glenn, who is the drummer for Vengeance, and he's about ready to do a Vengeance show. Pretty cool after all these
Yeah.
years. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we remember when Vengeance was just forming, don't we?
When they were new and babies.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
A long time ago. So, Sherry, you guys moved from California 2 years ago,
It's a year and a half. Year and a
year
half
and a
ago.
half.
Yeah.
And how
And
has that move been so far? You don't regret it?
no, no, I don't regret it. Maybe yesterday, maybe a teeny.
Yeah, I
No,
know.
I actually,
Yes.
it's funny because I love southern storms. I mean, I lived in South Carolina and traveled back and forth to South Carolina when we moved back to California. So I
Yes.
love a good storm. Glenn, not so much.
Yeah. He's a California native.
He is, yeah,
Yes.
through and through. So he was, yeah, it's not his favorite. Let's put it that way.
Now, is he afraid of the storms? Because they can get pretty
Um,
violent.
I don't know that he's afraid of them. I think it just
Mm.
kind of put a dent in his day, you
Yeah,
know.
well, they
So
definitely do that.
I mean, driving in it, and he drives to Franklin almost every day.
Yeah.
So it gets a little, but they get it worse than we do.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
we're
yeah.
we're in Murfreesboro, and I think that oh, speak of the devil, he just walked through the door, or he's getting
Uh-oh.
ready to. Well, not the devil.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So he took Daniel to work today. So
Okay.
Daniel works in Murfreesboro. I mean,
Yeah.
in Franklin. Glenn's like, who are you talking to?
Yes.
Bob. Who? Bob.
Sorry.
Yeah. He forgot what's going
Hi,
on.
honey.
Yeah. See? See? There you
What's
go.
going?
What's going on?
Is there a
What's going
storm?
on? Yes. So you have two sons, Daniel
Joey. Yeah. Yeah.
and a daughter-in-law.
I do. I have a daughter-in-law. What?
Yeah, that's awesome.
I
And
love her. I'm keeping her.
Joey and Crystal are awesome, both phenomenal musicians, but just
Yeah.
great people.
Yeah. They're
Yeah.
great.
Good-
I
Yeah, good
love
addition to
singing
the
with
family.
Crystal. Love singing with Crystal. Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's
So
amazing.
Terry, you were a member of the original Sanctuary worship team.
I was.
Your voice is featured on both of the Sanctuary worship albums.
Mhm.
And it's kind of cool after all these years to still be singing worship.
It is. It is. And poor
Yeah.
Jim, I still do the same thing. Oh, I don't like that song. I don't want to do it. I don't want to learn that song.
Yeah, I
I
know.
do.
Totally.
I come through. He ignores me.
Yeah, there you go. So Sherry, we have two worship teams basically.
Yes.
We've got we call it the older and the younger.
Yes.
And I don't know if that's a good delineation, but the older worship team, Glenn is on the drums and you're singing, and we've got let's see, we've got Chris Sorensen from Fear
Right.
Not on the guitar, and of course Jim and some of the people that have been
Ricky.
around for a while.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but on the younger one, your son Joey is on the drums, Crystal is on vocals, and we got the Waters,
Right.
Wes and Jen, uh, and
Jay.
yeah, Jay, and we've got Jamie and
Yeah.
Steve Casto,
Yeah.
and so and that's a whole lot more metal, a lot more hardcore,
Right.
a
Extreme and
little
we're classic.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
So interesting. What do you think about the extreme?
Well, I think that it's good. I think they're
Yeah,
good, and I think they sound really good. And I'm
yeah,
not gonna lie, it makes me cry almost every time. I
yeah,
get like, "Oh, my babies."
yeah.
It's not my style of worship, but that's because I'm the classic.
See, there you go. I
You
like
know?
that word.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
totally understand. And one of my excitements for Sanctuary is that, we've got some really good mentors, you
Yeah.
and other folks that have been here for a whole long time.
Right.
And
Right.
it's really great mentoring the younger folks as they come in, and I just believe we're about to fill things up with the younger folks, which is awesome.
And it's kind of cool because we can learn a lot from them.
Yes,
And it staying relevant and staying fresh, and I mean, it's kind of it's I like it. I like it.
yes,
So
absolutely. I
yeah,
sure do too. And even though we've got 40 years behind us in Sanctuary,
you keep putting that
I
out there, Bob.
I know I do.
Believe
We're still trying to stay on the edge as much as we can, and
right.
we really need the help of the younger folks to keep us there, don't we?
Yeah, yeah. Because they'll say things that I'm like, what? What are you talking? It is
Yes,
what it is, It just
yes,
it's hard to stay relevant when you still want to listen to stuff that was from the 70s,
yeah. Well, that's
But
true.
right. And but it's good because I mean Joey has obviously, and Daniel both, and Crystal, all of them keep us up to date on, what is and what isn't. And
Yeah,
so
that's cool, isn't it? Because
it
they
is
really
cool.
have a pulse on it.
They
The
do.
other thing that I love right now is that there's an emergence once again of the classic melodic metal style. It's the number one selling type of metal right now.
Yeah.
That's
Which is
interesting, isn't it?
good.
Yeah, yeah. It's Jim always calls the screamo screaming
Yeah.
style metal the
Yeah.
kill your mama music, he
It
calls
is
it.
killing her mama
Yeah.
music. Sometimes I think it's going to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's and even though we've got people that love it, and that's great, and a
Yeah.
whole lot of our sanctuary years have been spent with it, and we helped to pioneer it
We
with
did.
vengeance and some of the bands, um but I'm very excited that a lot of it's coming around again. It makes us older people in sanctuary maybe a little more relatable,
I
you
think
know?
so. I think so.
Yeah.
when we were at first, when we were trying to explain Sanctuary to Crystal, I thought, "Ugh, she's gonna, she embraced it immediately, like immediately. And
Yeah.
then because they flew out before we did, they moved here before we did, because they had work to go to. And she said that she immediately felt like family. Ah,
Mm,
ah,
that's
you know?
awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
So just to watch her and Joey just be a part of it, you know, and then Joey just played with Baron Cross.
Yes.
You
I
know,
know.
I mean, it's like full circle. It's like my whole worlds have collided. It's really
Yes.
cool. It's really
It is
cool.
really cool
Yeah.
because Barren Cross was at their beginnings when we started.
Yeah.
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 So it's been a lot of years in between. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So you've got a million memories over the years. I mean, there's
Yes.
so many things. Are there any, one or two or three in particular that stand out to you of Sanctuary 40 years?
Well, I will say that I have to thank you for really teaching me how to use a computer, because I mean,
Really?
everything, any job I had ever had was all like, write it out, write down an appointment. And I remember when I started being, and God bless you for having faith and hiring me as a sanctuary secretary, because I was clueless. I'm like, I can't do this. I don't know what I'm doing. And I mean, the heart palpitations were real,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
I remember thinking, I'm computer, because you were using the computer. You were like way ahead of time. And I was like, computer, what do we have to, I'll just write it down. I'll write you a message and I'll take it to you. Here I come. And I'll never forget, the one memory that stands out in my mind is open Apple, close Apple. Now that's as far
Yes.
as I can remember the Apple computer thing. But I remember thinking, I got this.
Yeah, good.
So anyway, but so I appreciate that. But
That's awesome.
I mean, there's so many memories,
Yeah,
just so
there are.
many. It's like, I mean, it's like a book. It's like a whole life, of
Yeah.
just, I mean, we had some good ones that we were telling the other night about at Jim's party, and but
Yes.
there's just so many memories. Being on the road, going to Cornerstone, and
Yes.
uh, just
We
just
we kind of took the whole church, didn't we?
we kind of did, yeah. Come on, we're all
Yeah,
going.
yeah,
We're caravanning.
yeah,
Um, I just have. I just remember so many, especially at the sanctuary house.
yeah.
Lots of good memories there. Lots of um, things that happened. I remember that the front yard had a lot of weeds in the garden, and I thought, I'm gonna go pull those weeds. So I went out there, and I mean, I was like pulling the little weeds out, and I was like, we'll plant some plants here. And I think you did. I think you got some flowers, and we planted flowers. But we found, and this is one of my favorite stories, I found a potato bug. And it was, yeah, I don't know if anybody knows what a potato bug looks like, but they're hideous looking, and
Yeah.
they're big. So I took it in the shovel and I brought it in the house, and I'm like, look what I found. You're like, that's great. I'm like, isn't it kind of cool though? You're like, yeah, it's very cool. Take it out. So I put it on the porch, and I think Glenn and Jim came in, and they were like, what's that? I'm like, it's a potato bug. And they're like, ew. That potato bug made the rounds of the
Yes, I
sanctuary house.
remember.
I think we put it in your medicine cabinet one time.
Yes, I
We put
remember.
it in the freezer. It went into, it sat on top of the fireplace for a while in the shower. It was everywhere. Poor potato
I
bug.
remember it being on my desk as well at
It
one
was on
time.
your desk.
Yes.
Yeah. It was like your
Yeah.
mascot. Yeah.
Yeah, I had totally forgotten about the potato bug.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. You're always in trouble when Jim lives at the house, first of all,
Yes.
and then when Jim and Glenn get together.
Oh yeah. That's trouble
Yeah,
right there.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Lots
were
of fun ones.
instigators of a whole lot of interesting antics.
Yes, they were. Yes, they
Yes, they
were.
were.
A lot. Yes. So they used to tease me. They would call. Well, I don't think Glenn did. I know I maybe he did, but I'm pretty sure that it was Jim. Would call and use voices on the phone.
Yes.
And one time he called and used his voice, and I was like, or somebody called, and I thought it was Jim. And I was like, oh, yeah, very funny. Not going to believe you this time. Hung up the phone. Found out it was a real person. And
Oh no.
and you came in and you're like, there's this guy that's going to call that's, he's from this country and he's going to, and I was like, oh
Yeah.
no. So, but he called back and I was like, Sanctuary, this is Sherry. Oh, sure. Oh. Yeah,
That's
I mean, there was a
awesome.
lot of that. So I remember I sat all of them down, all of the boys at the Sanctuary House, and I'm look, here's the deal. If you call the Sanctuary House again and pretend to be somebody you are not, I'm going to choke you all. So I'm
Good.
like, this is a business, people.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah,
Sorry, those are, you ought to write the book,
I
Sanctuary
know.
Antics.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would be fun.
yeah.
So I have to ask you,
Hmm.
all of these years later,
Hmm.
uh, probably the most difficult thing for us is to stay on the edge.
Yes.
And I promised the Lord so many decades ago to stay on the edge wherever the edge was. I think that's a challenge for all of us. It is for me at 72. It
Yeah.
continues to be a bit of a challenge. But tell me your heart for that.
I think it's from watching my kids. Well, first of all, because it reminds me of when we started it,
Yes.
when we were there and how people looked at us and thought, those people cannot be Christians.
Yeah,
They cannot
exactly.
be.
Yeah.
And and I remember thinking, but they don't see our hearts. They don't
Yeah.
see what we learn. They don't see what we teach. They don't, I mean, we're totally biblically based and they're just looking at our outside. And so I kind of understand. I mean, I understand that, and I look at my kids now and the kids that are so on fire for the Lord and they're standing there and they look to me like, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what are they wearing? And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
wait a minute. That was me. That was
Yeah.
me, with my weird hair and my weird clothes. And so, I think it's to really to lift them up and to make them feel like they are relevant and they are
Yes.
needed and necessary and that there are people out there who need that message from people that look like them, you
Yes.
know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
So
maybe it's time for the cool hairstyles again.
yeah, well, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
No.
So my
Ah,
favorite hairstyle
oh,
was you did a black mohawk and leopard spots
uh,
around
uh,
the
I
edges.
shaved the sides,
Yeah.
and yeah, and I wasn't married to Glenn. Glenn was living at the Sanctuary House, and I came in. This is a great story too. I came in, and I'm like,
Yeah.
Bob, look, and you were like, that's cool, and you're like, what does Glenn think? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And then I was like, oh
Yeah.
no, what if he doesn't like it? Well, he didn't like it.
No,
He
I
was like,
remember.
he came in and I go, I hid in your bathroom, remember? And you're like, no,
Yes.
you have to come out at some point. I'm like, no, I'm
Yeah.
not coming out. I'm not. I am not. You tell him to leave. But so I came out and he was like, oh no, what happened? And I'm like, it's just hair. It'll grow back. Well, Glenn just wasn't used to that. And I was a
Yeah.
punk rocker. So I did stuff like that all the time. It was easy. It was just, cut it all off and start over. And but he got used to it kind of.
Yeah. I think you did. I think you broke him
Yeah,
in,
I think so.
which
Poor
was,
Glenn.
yeah, well, he came out of the whole metal movement.
Yeah,
He knew a lot of the original bands.
yeah.
He was on the strip. He was very much involved in the scene, played music already. And it was a little bit of a surprise to me that he didn't think that that hairstyle was pretty cool. It
That's
was the
because
coolest
he's
one I'd ever
lame.
seen. Yeah, see?
It
Yeah.
was cool. I thought it was cool.
I thought
But,
so too.
and
Yeah.
I thought, well, I'll change it in 2 weeks. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
So
And you did.
I did. Yeah. Yeah.
Like almost every 2 weeks, I think, if I
Pretty much.
remember
Yeah.
correctly.
I had
Yeah.
I have a friend of mine who had moved down to Venice Beach, and uh, Lisa, my friend Lisa, and I had gone down there to do some shopping in Venice, and I hadn't seen him in a while, and all of a sudden I see him coming through the crowd. He's really tall, and he had on this like white caftan, and and he goes, "Sherry, I knew it was you because your hair was different." And
That's awesome.
that's one of my favorite stories about Robert. But
Yeah.
so it's just, and she's like, "Yeah, is that just typical or what? Your hair is always different." Yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
I love that.
So not so much
Well,
anymore. I mean, you know,
come on.
I'll
Come
wear
on.
it. I don't know. I go on
Yeah.
Friday to get it done, so we'll see.
There you go. We'll expect the leopard spots.
Oh yeah.
That was the coolest one.
Daniel goes,
So,
"Mom, your hair. What was it?" Actually, I remember
and
Joey one time. Joey looked at a picture. He had a picture when I was pregnant with Joey. My hair was hot pink and spiked.
yeah.
And Joey was looking back at pictures of when he was born. He goes, "Mom, why couldn't you have normal hair?" Now he doesn't feel that way. Now he's
No.
like, "Mom, you were cool." Right? Like, remember, those people that you play in bands with? Those are my friends. My
Yes.
friends.
Yes.
No,
Yeah, exactly.
right. Yeah. They think I'm cool. That's what I hope.
So,
Yeah.
Terry, all of these years later, once again,
Hmm.
what do you feel like the road is going forward? What's the burden on your heart as Sanctuary continues to push forward?
I think what Glenn?
Dodging tornadoes.
Glenn said dodging tornadoes. Peanut gallery over there. Um,
Yeah.
I think that it is to. I think honestly, I think it's kind of the same thing that it was back in the day. I
Yeah.
think it's to bring the message to the kids who really need it. And let me tell you, I
Yeah.
think a lot of those kids are hungry for it. I think that um, I mean, there's so much dissension in the world right now. So many
Yeah.
people don't, and I'm pretty spicy, I let things fly. But I think that there are kids out there who really need to hear the gospel. And I think that that's the way to take it to
Yeah.
them, is the
Yeah.
same way we did back in the day. It's just a
Yeah.
different style, you know?
But they're the same kids.
They are the same kids.
They
But
have different
actually,
faces, but they're the same.
honestly, Bob, I don't know if they are the same kids. I think they have a lot more on their plates now
Yes.
than
Yes.
than my kids did growing up. And
Yes.
and I felt that they had more on their plate than I did growing up, but the world
Yeah.
is different now. It's a lot harsher. It's a lot meaner.
Yes.
Um, and um, I really think that they really need hope. They need
Yeah.
that. And I
Yes.
think that it's good because, like, I've seen our kids, mixing in with, like we did, going
Yeah.
into a
Yeah.
crowd of people that are not Christians, and they know there's something different about them,
Yes.
and then music brings people together. And
Yes.
and it doesn't, and then they're like, "Oh, well, that's kind of cool, I never really thought about that," or, "Oh, I know somebody who's a Christian," or
Yeah.
so I think that it's a good thing. I mean, I think it brings people together, and I just think it's really necessary right now. I mean, we thought we had it kind of bad then, but I don't think so. I think it's worse now. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. And
yeah,
I'm excited for the things that God's doing.
I
I
am
kind of
too.
feel revival in the air, and I'm
Yeah,
excited to be
yeah,
part of that once again. But
yeah.
there are good days ahead.
Yeah, that's right. No
Yes.
tornadoes.
Yeah, except for the tornadoes, right?
The tornadic activity.
Yes. Well,
Yeah,
Sherry, we want to remind everyone that we are doing church every Sunday,
every
10:30 in the
Sunday.
morning.
That's right.
And the the old worship team, no,
The
excuse me, the
classic one.
mature ones.
Classic
Yes.
one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You guys are still leading the worship on Sunday, and it's pretty upbeat. It's not quite the worship
No,
band,
no, it's
and
not the extreme worship band. We don't do the
yeah,
but we're
but
pretty cool. I mean,
and
for
you are pretty
old
cool,
folks.
sure. Yeah, exactly.
My daughter-in-law
And
likes me. She
there
thinks
you
I'm cool.
and that matters, yes.
It does.
And then
She is a
we've
lot like me.
yeah,
She
she
is.
really is.
She is a lot like
And
me. Yeah.
they do say that the boys especially look for wives that are like their moms,
Yeah.
and Joey definitely did.
Congratulations.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And we laugh about
Sherry,
that. Yeah, we do.
we have our gathering coming up a
Yes.
week from Saturday,
Right.
and I'm excited for that. Terry Tripp. Terry was at the very first sanctuary uh, service that we ever had way back when.
Right.
He was from a very famous TBN family called the Tripp Family Singers. He had his own show on TBN when he was about 12. He was the official rock and roll kid
Right.
on the channel. He's gone through a lot of stuff, and we're excited to have Terry with us. He's been a good friend of Sanctuary for a lot of years now, and he's got a great book that I have read called Shut the Hell Up, Silence the Roar, about what voices to listen to and God's encouraging messages. And so we're excited to have him at the gathering. Of course, food and fellowship and all the cool things that we do at the gathering.
And coffee.
And coffee.
Yay!
Yeah. Yay.
I can't drink out
So,
of this when Glenn drives, though, because I
yeah.
end up wearing it.
Do you?
I do. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm like, I
Let's
come to
see.
church going, I got a stain.
That's great.
The Lord doesn't see it.
There you go. Well, Miss Sherry, thank you for
Thank you
joining
for
me
having
today.
me.
It's just fun to have you on, and we just need to do it more often. This is always fun.
Yeah, it's always fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And this was
come
off
on
the cuff. I
Sundays.
mean,
Yes.
so
Well, come on Sundays or the gathering and meet
yeah,
Sherry in person and some
that's
of the
right.
other folks that are here. And you will enjoy what's going on at the
Yeah, it's a lot
gatherings
of
and
fun.
on
A lot
Sunday.
of
We
fun.
have a really, really great time.
We
We
do.
do.
We do.
All
Yeah.
right. Miss
That's
Sherry,
cool.
thank you.
Thank
Hope you
you.
have a great day.
I will. I'm going to go check on my
Awesome.
plants.
Good. That's
Make sure they didn't
important.
get squished by the rain. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I got
Mm.
to do that check too.
Yeah.
Folks, don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back. Hello, my friends. I hope to see you this year at the Loud and Proud Festival. I'm going to be there along with a lot of great bands and a lot of great people. Great fellowship, great music, great time together. Loud and Proud Festival coming up. Jonathan Johnson is our special guest today. So excited to have him part of the show today. Good morning, Jonathan.
Good morning, sir.
Good to see you.
I should probably say Buenos dias since I'm coming from Mexico. So,
Yes, you are. Now, let's start there because you live, well, right outside of Cancun.
yeah, about 15 minutes from Cancun. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, how did you end up living in Mexico?
Oh wow, that's an adventure. We used to take cruises and stuff a lot, so we had been here just basically going to Cozumel several times on cruises and stuff. So when COVID happened, the pandemic happened, everything pretty much was just shut down everywhere, and it was the only place really that was open, and we'd really never spent any time, on the mainland and the Caribbean of Mexico. So we decided to take a week-long trip here, and when we showed up, we fell in love with it and stayed for almost a month. And it
Mm,
just kind of got in our blood, and we ended up coming back several times, throughout the pandemic, and staying for 3 months, and then 6 months, and then we finally kind of made the jump 3 years ago, and we've been here ever since. So we love it.
that's awesome. What a great place to live. I've
It's
only been to
terrible. You wouldn't like it.
Cozumel. Yeah.
You wouldn't like it.
Yes. I've only been there once in that area, but I've been to Puerto Vallarta a million times, and
Mm,
I
beautiful.
appreciate your love for the country.
Mm.
Beautiful places, really beautiful.
Yes, for sure. Come and visit anytime. We have a
Thank
spare
you.
room.
Well,
Come
I
on
may
down.
just take you up on that.
Hey,
Speaking of
anytime.
visitors, you have our producer in your house right now,
Yes,
staying with you.
he's in my dining room right now.
Awesome. He's
Yep.
running the show from your house.
Yeah, he is.
Yes.
Yes, he is. So yeah,
Well,
he's in the other room going, your ring mic is too low. I can't see you. And then he has me turn it up and turn it up. And I'm like, I'm going blind in here, And then he's like, oh,
That's awesome.
it darkened your screen because I've got you in the waiting portal. And I'm like, oh, thanks. So
Yeah. Well, he is the best producer around, and we
he
sure
is
appreciate him so
one of my
much.
favorite humans. So
Yeah,
as
mine too.
as are you, sir. It is always an
Well,
honor to
thank
speak with
you.
you. And you're one of those people that when I see you at events and stuff, you always make my heart smile. So ever since I
Oh,
was
thank you, Jonathan.
17, 18 years
Appreciate
old.
it.
So, yeah.
Well, and you and I have had some opportunities over the years to spend some time together.
Yeah.
One of the greatest things recently, though, was your appearances at Immortal Fest. You were at the very first Immortal Fest.
Yes, sir. We were.
Yeah. So recall that time because, little did we know that Immortal Fest wouldn't just be a one-time thing, but it would actually spark a movement again in Christian music. Melodic metal and some of the newer forms of metal were kind of in conflict. They were
Hmm.
two different crowds, and melodic metal wasn't real strong in those days. It's, the number one selling metal right now, but it certainly wasn't then. And a whole new resurgence of not just in Christian circles, but in secular metal as well. But that first Immortal Fest, how did it feel to you? And let's have some of your memories from it.
Honestly, the feeling reminded me of old school Cornerstone. I mean, it had that feel
Yes,
to it because the thing about Cornerstone made it for those who didn't get the blessing of being there in the past. It had this real family camaraderie about it. People would camp and hang out and have food together, and people would see each other only that time of year, and reconvene the next year. And so it's kind of become that, but it has that same spirit about it, that kind of
yes,
family gathering vibe. So we didn't know that was going to happen. And, so when Deny the Fallen got invited to come, they asked because obviously at that time Ray was the vocalist for Deny the Fallen, Ray Parra, and so they knew us both from Sacred Warrior as well. So the owner of the BMI Center that was promoting the festival asked us to do a couple Sacred Warrior songs, kind of maybe as an encore or something like that, just as a
yes.
special thing. So we agreed to do that, and then that kind of turned into, do you think it's possible to maybe get a Sacred Warrior reunion out of it? And so we contacted the other guys and we kind of convened and talked about it, about kind of putting the classic lineup back together and for it.
Yes.
That ended up happening. So actually, Deny the Fallen was playing first, and it kind of rolled over into the resurgence of Sacred Warrior, which now obviously Ray is full-time vocalist for Sacred Warrior again, and the
Yes.
demands on that was getting a lot more extreme. And me living outside the country, I can't be going back to the United States every 3 weeks, to play shows and stuff. So
Right. Yes.
because in order to do a show, you have to rehearse and all the stuff that goes along with it.
Yes.
So I had to step away from it, to prioritize Deny the Fallen. And, then Ray kind of got put in the lurch because it was demanding so much of him and stuff. So I kind of stepped up as the full-time lead vocalist for Deny the Fallen, and he's kind of focused, zeroed in on Sacred Warrior. And then he's just finishing another album with Worldview as well, which is going to be spectacular. So
Yes.
there was nothing there was nothing weird about any of that shift that happened. It was just it kind of worked out best for everybody, and
Yes.
So anyway, yeah, the first Immortal Fest was a surprise for everybody, and it really is that kind of cornerstone like family gathering thing that happens every year, and we're really blessed to get to go back and play.
Yeah, and I'm so glad. And yes, it has been a huge blessing. My favorite part though, Jonathan, is that it's a family event.
Mm-hmm.
Going back and these, we look back over the last 40 years of Sanctuary anyway, but really about 40 years of Christian heavy metal, 41 years. Striper is 40 years old now too,
Yeah.
and the band is concerned. So it's about the longevity and looking back over all this time and then looking at the crowd representative of 40 years, all those people are sitting there. Some of them just came into the movement,
Yep.
in the last maybe 10 years, but there are a lot of them that have been there since the very beginning.
Yeah.
And what an awesome opportunity to be able to look at a sea of faces and realize that these are people that have been touched by the movement.
It's as a musician and this as a minister, you don't often get to hear the testimonies, of what what has transpired, or how your music or your messages reach people. We get a very small sample size of that, so sometimes it's hard to stay encouraged because you don't know what's really happening out there, and you just have to trust the Lord that the Holy Spirit's doing that work and everything. So when you get to go to events like this and people come up and it's now become multi-generational. They're bringing their children and sometimes their grandchildren to these events, and you're getting to see how now their children are being exposed to it, and it's multi-generational. And I'm sure it's the same thing for Sanctuary as well. And it's just that part is amazing because you don't get to experience that as often maybe as we need to as musicians and ministers and stuff. And so to be able to see that and experience that is really cool. And I've got the blessing now of experiencing that with my sons, because two of my sons are in Deny the Fallen. So my son Josh
Awesome.
is the drummer, has been since the beginning, and my other son Jason is now playing bass in the band. So
Good.
yeah, so it's really like a family event, and it's going to be a family thing for us as well. So it's pretty
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yes. Boy, that's a huge blessing, isn't it?
Oh man, more than you know. Than you know. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Well, let's go back a few years, Jonathan. And, there are people watching us from all over the world, some watching live. Most people watch after the fact. But there are people who have been involved with Christian metal for maybe just a couple of years now. But we've got many people that have been involved since the beginning, and you've got a lot of, well, Sacred Warrior fans here as well, going way, way
Yeah.
back. Talk about your beginnings. Uh, how did that come about? Sacred Warrior, all of the things that happened initially for you. Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, so I was basically a kid. I was in a band called Zeal. We had been offered, recording
Yes.
contracts with like Star Song, Pure Metal, Intense. Like, we were getting kind of the keys to the kingdom thrown to us.
Great band. Great
But we
band.
were kind of like dead set on following the Striper path. So we thought we were going to get a secular deal, and we were holding out for that. So, but we got the opportunity to play some of the greatest shows in the history of Christian metal. We played all of the metal fests. We played open for just about every band, Bride, Sacred Warrior. We played with Vinge. I mean, we played with all the greats. And
I remember.
I was just a kid, 16, 17, 18 years old at the time. Well, we had played so much with Sacred Warrior that, we had a great relationship. Obviously, both bands are from Illinois, and, Ray and I had gotten really close over the years. And so when Rick Macias left the band, the original keyboard player, they made the decision, instead of adding another keyboard player, they wanted to add a second guitar player, because they were working on the Wicked Generation album, which was kind of a darker, heavier, more Queensryche centric kind of album.
Yes.
And it kind of required two guitars to get that level of heavy. So they started looking for, a second guitarist, and I was Ray's pick from the very beginning. So when we played with them at Metal Fest in 1990, he was that entire festival. He was all over me. You need to come audition. You need to come audition. And, I was in Zeal at the time, and there were a few issues inside the band, kind of character issues that were, attempted to be being dealt with. And so some growing pains there spiritually. And so anyway, finally, after him working me for basically 2 days, I said, he goes, just come up and jam with us just for the fun of it. You can say you played with Sacred Warrior. And so finally I'm like, okay, I gave in, and I went up the following weekend. And at this point I was 19, and they were all in their mid to late 20s. And they had, obviously some of the biggest records in Christian metal history out.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
Anyway, so I went up and auditioned, and we played through one song. We played through the song Rebellion, and the guys all looked at each other like they'd never heard themselves with two guitar players before. And there was an instant chemistry between myself and Bruce Swift, on guitar. And they were like, what else do you know? And I said, well, you mentioned something. And they threw out another song. I don't even remember what it was. And we played basically through the first chorus, started into the second verse, and Steve Watkins, the bass player, just was like, stop, stop, stop. And I'm like, oh man, I just flubbed this up, right? I'm not a 19-year-old kid, so I'm nervous, and I had no intention of joining the band. It was just, Ray talked me in to come up and jam with them. He's like, well, I think I've heard enough. And I'm like, oh no, this must have been bad. And I didn't realize they were just all in shock, because they'd never heard, their music sound like that before. And they offered me the gig on the spot. I was the only person that ever auditioned. Yeah, it was crazy. Mm-hmm. So I was 19 years old and just thrust right into the middle of that. And, Zeal was pretty popular at the time. And we were used to playing in, clubs, 600-700 people at a time, playing these big events with these other bands in front of thousands of people. And I'm thinking, well, I've hit the big time now. I'm in Sacred Warrior. And the first tour date, we go and play this club up near Chicago. And I'm thinking, this is a hometown gig. This is going to be turned out. The promoter completely blew it. They didn't do any advertising. There were 8 people in the club. And I'm like, oh no, what have I done?
Yeah.
And that was the famous gig where Tony fell off the drum riser backwards and continued to kick. His feet were going like this, and he was upside down, wedged between the back wall and the drum riser.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I can totally see him doing that.
Oh yeah. That's how I ended up in Sacred Warrior. And I was with them, wrote the Obsessions record with them, ended up being their biggest album ever. And which was, I kind of felt like it was kind of a hybrid between Sacred Warrior and Zeal, because I kind of brought that sound into it. So that's why it kind of has a bit of a different vibe than the other albums, but it was definitely their biggest one. So, and the rest is kind of history, but I'm thankful for that time period. I call it my my musical college. I learned a lot during that 2-year stint. So
you learned a lot from that. Well, what was after Sacred Warrior then?
I went back to Zeal,
Okay.
because that was my baby. My heart was there, and we ended up moving
Yeah.
to Louisville, where I lived for decades and raised my kids and stuff there. And I went to
Yeah.
Bible school for 4 years, and just focused really on just seeking out the heart of God. Getting trained and equipped. I've been blessed to have some great mentors. Ulf Christensen from Jerusalem, mentored me for a few years
Yes.
when he was living
He's
in the
awesome.
States. And
Yeah.
yeah, that if anybody knows anything about Ulf and their music, Ulf is one of the most direct human beings I've ever met in my entire life. And
Yes.
that dude, he tore into me
Great
on
guy.
many occasions. Put his
Yes.
boot in my rear end on many occasions and helped form me as a man and as a minister. And I remember him saying to me, "You have to make the decision whether you want to be a soldier or an entertainer. You can
Wow.
you can do both, but you have to choose the soldier part first."
Yes.
Because I was kind of seeking making it, and because Zeal almost signed with Universal and Warner Brothers, so we had almost a bidding war going on in the early 2000s. At the time that we were around Ulf, and he was kind of there, had a front row seat for all that, and we were playing huge venues, with bands like Seven Dust and Trivium, and all these different bands, and we were getting airplay all over the country, but the Lord had other plans, and I'm thankful. I'm thankful it didn't go that route, because my true heart is as a worshiper, and for the ministry. And so I got into leading worship, and just really focused on local church ministry for a while. Kind of stepped away from the rock for about a decade, and then the Lord called me back on the bench and goes, "Get out there with those radicals again." So we started up Deny the Fallen, and worked on that, and kind of formed that sound, and put the first record out in 2018. So, but Deny the Fallen's a very hybrid between classic metal and super modern metal. So it's like
Mm.
it's a bridge between the generations. And I'm a huge fan, and I've got dear friendship with like the guys in Seven Dust and bands like that, which I'm super thankful that Clint Lowry, the guitar player from Seven Dust, just came out very boldly professing his faith and stuff. And I knew him in the beginning when that was not the case. And we
Mm.
witnessed to him and talked to him and prayed with him on many occasions over the years, and to see the fruit of that. Like I said, you don't
Awesome.
often get to see the fruit, but now he's out like being a mouthpiece for the kingdom, and that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. That is amazing. And how awesome to be able to watch that happen.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, you are not a man without projects, Jonathan.
Yes, that is very true. Very
You've
true.
got you've got a few of them coming up that I'd love to chat about, and one of them that's really on my heart, and I know it is yours as well, is that you're working on a worship album,
I
and
am.
I'd
I've,
like to talk about that.
I've been writing original worship songs for about 15 years, and honestly, uh, they were so good, and it was kind of like a sacred experience for me that I didn't kind of want to touch it with like unclean hands. I didn't want to try to do it before it was time, or do it for success or whatever, because honestly, modern worship music has become one of the main genres, most successful genres out there. So if you want a
Yeah.
recipe for success right now, put out like a modern worship album. So anyway, I kind of withheld from that because I didn't want to do it for that reason. And I knew that it had probably more potential for commercial success than the rock stuff did. And so I've been sitting on these songs for quite a while, and they were very, very different than what was going on in the worship world over the last 15 years. That kind of U2-ish kind of vibe was kind of at the core of a lot of modern worship up until about the last year and a half. And now you hear the bluesy, kind of funky, rocky vibe starting to enter it into it. Artists like Brandon Lake and stuff like that. So um, that's really kind of what it's like, and it really wasn't ready. It wasn't time for it yet. So the Lord really put it on my heart in the beginning of this year that this is the year to complete it and get it out there.
Mm.
And we're also going to do some rocked up, worship stuff with Deny the Fallen as well.
Great.
We're gonna do some more extreme worship too, to kind of, fight on both fronts, so to speak. But
I love that. And that's where my heart's at too, to be very honest.
Mhm.
I think God's really leading with worship these days,
Yeah.
um, and the whole thing.
I feel
So
like it's
that's
the
very
original
exciting.
language. It's the original
Yes.
language in a way, because if you think
Mhm.
about it, like music existed in heaven before man existed, like before he had created
Yes.
any of the things in Genesis. Like there was worship, there was melody, there was harmony, there was rhythm. All these things
So
existed.
awesome.
It's almost like the heart of God. The heartbeat of God
Yes.
is
Yes.
melodious. So
Yeah, I love that. Well, not only the worship album, you've got some Deny the Falling stuff or Fallen stuff that's coming out, and
mhm.
love for you to talk about that as well.
Yeah, we have a whole it'd be our third full album. It's written, partially recorded. Um, I think it will probably be out before the end of the year, but it kind of depends on the process of the other projects. Because right now I'm a juggler. I'm juggling 3 different things. So, but I'm thinking probably by the end of the year, probably latest next spring. But we're definitely gonna. I think we're gonna release another single before Immortal Fest. That's kind of the hope.
Awesome. Awesome. And I love that album cover, by the way.
Which
That is
one?
so cool.
Both. Yeah.
The one that he just put up, the feed.
Uh, the feed one.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that is so cool. So obviously I have an idea of what the song is talking about, but
We've
that's,
we've we've had great art on all of our covers. John Cassandra did our first one, uh,
yes.
which was amazing, and then a friend of ours from Brazil did the second one, the Echo Chamber one, which is an amazing art piece, and then that one kind of makes a statement. The feed one is,
Yes.
it's pretty obvious what's happening there. So,
Yes.
yeah,
Absolutely. So, Jonathan, if that wasn't enough, you're working on a book.
I am working on a
Yeah.
book. That was the surprise. My plan was not to work on a book right now. And you as a minister and a person who's been involved in many, many projects over the years, understand that you have to know where the grace is at in the season that you're in.
Yes, you do.
And many
That's
times
true.
I've attempted to start something out of season, and there was no grace for it. And this
Yeah.
book, I had the original idea for it literally when I was in Sacred Warrior the first time. So going back to like my early 20s,
Mhm.
and I had the story arc and everything for it. And over the decades, I've literally attempted to begin to write it, and got about a half chapter in and just knew that it wasn't there yet. Like it wasn't. I'm a perfectionist, so I'm very critical of my own work. And when I'm looking at it going, nope, you know what I mean? So
I
that's kind
do.
of what happened several times. And the grace wasn't there yet. And it just wasn't time. And honestly, a lot of the stuff it's a fiction. It's kind of a historical, supernatural mystery thriller. Like
Oh,
uh,
good.
my friend Robert Bob, that you've met and known for years as well, he said to
Yes.
bring up Og Mandino. He said that
Yes.
it's kind of in that vein of kind of biblical concepts wrapped into
Good.
mystery, but the whole story
Love
kind of
that.
revolves around it's kind of a coming of age story, hero's journey type of thing. A couple of like 18-year-old kids are kind of discovering their path spiritually, and also they kind of stumble into uh, the boy's dad is one of the leading geneticists in the world, and they kind of stumble into a plot to clone the blood of Jesus off the Shroud of Turin. And it kind of
Mm.
develops from there and kind of goes through biblical history and the Genesis history, and
Wow.
secret societies and cabals, and it's just a lot of really, really exciting stuff, a lot of action, a lot of
Man, that
if you
sounds awesome.
cross Indiana Jones, probably the Da Vinci Code, book,
Yeah.
With Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. Like, you got all
Good.
the supernatural elements going on at the same time as all
I
the
love.
historical.
Well, you had me at Ogmandino. That's one
There
of
you
my
go.
favorite
I
authors.
think you'll
Yeah.
like it. I
But
think you'll.
yeah.
but
But
yeah,
wow, how exciting is that? That's awesome. Well, whenever you get this book done, we have to have you back to talk about it in more detail.
yeah,
And
I'm kind of
we'd love to
looking at.
be part of that.
I think it'll probably be finished in June. So
Good.
yeah.
I wish I was. I'm writing 4 books,
Oh wow.
and I'm not finishing any of them. So
Mm.
I totally understand what it takes to. It's easy to start a book. It's not easy to
Yeah.
finish one.
Well,
And
for
yeah,
me, like I said, just knowing where the grace is at, because I
yeah.
had no plans of writing this book right now, and I started literally just one day. I got a little inspired. Back, it was literally mid-February when I started writing, and
Mm,
started, dictating in my phone and putting ideas down, and in basically 24 hours, I had the first 3 chapters, and I'm looking at it going, "Whoa, this
that's
was easy,
awesome.
and this was special." Like,
Awesome.
and I realized, the Lord had put a tailwind in my sails. It's like
Yes.
grace is here. Let's get on this, and yeah, just now chapters are just flying out, and I'm going. This is better than I ever imagined it being. So I'm pretty excited about
So
it.
great. Well, and Jonathan, I had somebody that suggested that I feed my outlines into AI and let AI fill in the blanks. And I thought, I think I'm a little better at following the Holy Spirit than AI
Mhm.
is.
Yes, for
Yeah.
sure. And it's a
Uh,
great tool for editing. Like you can use
Yes,
it
yes,
like for
yes.
editing, because that's my weakness. It's like,
Yeah, mine
fixing
too.
run-on sentences and punctuation. So if you
Yes.
use it for that, it takes a lot of the pressure off the editing side of it. But yeah, if the creativity's got to come from inside.
No, it does because sometimes you start writing one thing and you end up saying another as the
Yeah.
Holy Spirit guides. And I love that
Mm.
part. Jonathan, any last words for our audience? I think there are people that are excited to hear you play again. Talk about some of the upcoming events that you have. What can we expect musically?
Really, the only thing that we have coming up, like show wise, is Immortal Fest. I
Yeah,
would I would definitely say if you can make it there, make it. Because I know,
yes,
for an event like that, it takes a lot to put it on, and it needs to continue to be more successful every year, so that we continue
yes.
to have these Immortal Fests. So, if you're thinking about going, this is the year to go, because I think it needs to be really successful this year so it can continue on. So yeah,
I
that would be my main
totally agree.
encouragement. If you can make it, if you can swing it, do it. Just if for no other reason. It may not happen again. So, and it's pretty special.
Yeah,
It
it
really is.
really is. And folks, I really encourage you, especially at the first one, to be there. It's we're doing our Sanctuary 40th anniversary celebration, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad you're going to be there for that as well.
No,
So
me too.
we're excited to do that. And of course, part two will be the end of August, and some
Mm-hmm.
more great bands then too. And it's hard to choose between one and not the other. So
Go to both.
um, yeah. I was just talking to Tracy Ferry yesterday. You may remember Tracy from
Hmm.
he
Yeah.
he filled in with Stryper for a while, and he played with Boston for quite a few years, the old band Boston.
Yeah.
And he told me yesterday that he's doing bass for Stricken or Striken. I never knew how
Really?
to pronounce that. Yeah,
Yeah.
so he's going to do that project, and I'm anxious to see him on stage again too,
Yeah.
hoping
That's
that
gonna
he
be a while.
that all that works out. But great bands, great time, but especially great fellowship, Jonathan.
Yeah, for sure. That's it right there.
It is. Well, thank you, my friend. So
Thank you
always
so much.
good to see you.
You too.
And I'm looking forward to seeing you in a couple months at
Yep.
Immortal Fest.
Yes,
And
sir.
folks, thank you for joining us also. We're here every single week and on Wednesdays, and you never know what to expect. Surprises and just a whole lot of fun and lots of information. So, folks, don't forget you are blessed. So go and be a blessing.